Yo, what up? It's your boy T-Dubbie Solo, and today we're going to talk about using your PA mixer along with your Driverack. Now, the reason why I make this video because I know some DJs were carrying an extra equipment, such as this studio mixer right here or a PA mixer along to make their sound system more flexible. Now, what I got here is my studio mixer. I'm going to use it as an example. So, here's my Driverack and my main source. Now, normally, when you got your hardware, which is an NS7 or anything you got, you would take the output of this and you would run your cables on the input of the Driverack. And then, of course, you will run your mains output into the top speakers right here. And same thing goes with the bottom speakers, so the bottom output to hook up to your subs. This is the ones down here. So right now, these are not going to be used. They're just going to sit over there. I got these two speakers over there to demonstrate, the top and the bottom. So, in order for me to explain this, we're going to start by going to this website and explain the Driverack, the back of it, so I don't have to take it apart and turn it around. So, here's the Driverack. Now, normally, when people get the Driverack, you know, here's your inputs, here's your outputs, main and sub. Now for the input, this is where this goes. You take the output of this and you run it through the input right here, left and right. And now you left with the outputs. Now for the main channel right here, instead of just taking that and hook it to your speakers, you would take these two cables and you're going to run it through your mixer's input right here. You're going to run them either channel. Let me get the light over here. You're going to run them either to channel 1 and 2 right there at the input. And it's best to have a 1/4 inch because right now I don't have a 1/4 inch. I'm just using the XLRs for the example. I advise you not to do it because this thing has phantom power and you want to make sure it's off before you hook it up from your Driverack to this mixer. Because if you don't, you're going to really do some damage with your equipment. So it's best to have a not XLR, a 1/4 inch on the other end of the cable and hook it up to channel 1 and 2, or you can go to the stereo channel and hook in left and right for your mains. So again, back to the Driverack. Now for your sub output, instead of running straight to your sub, you would take these two cables, XLR, and the other end must be 1/4 inch. Same thing for the mains. So just take the cable from the sub out and make sure the other end is a 1/4 inch, and you will run this either the next two channel 3 and 4, or you can use the stereo channel and hook it up left and right here. Left and right. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Now we got to talk about speakers. Now, the way I'm going to show you the back of this on the internet. Now, this is the type of mixer I got. Here's your power. Oh, I hate it when it does that. It switch on its own. I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm going to do the best way I can to keep it short. Okay, here's the power. Plug in. Turn the power on, but make sure you don't turn the phantom power on if you're using XLRs from the Driverack to the mixer input, because you can really damage it. So I advise you to get a 1/4 inch on the other end to run it through the mixer input. So I just wish it can stop doing that. So here's your main outs and here's your sub outs. You hook your power subwoofer into the sub out right here. And then you will hook your main on the main out right here from your speakers to the speaker here. And I'm going to show you right now. So here's the cable I hooked up right here. It's hooked up to the input. You follow this cable and it goes right here, as I showed you, on the main out for the top output right here. Now for the subs, you can see it. Now for the subs, you see I'm using a 1/4 inch now. I advise you to use the XLR on this end and have the other end a 1/4 inch going to the mixer output on the back of that mixer. So here's a 1/4 inch. Follow this cable and it goes, if you can see it, and it goes on the sub out right here, if you can see it, or I can focus it. There it is. Sub output. This cable goes to my power sub, and here's the main output. This XLR goes to my power top speakers, JBLs. Once you're done with that, you know, make sure that, you know, all your knobs are like down. Had it center, had it master control all the way down, but right now I had it to barely turned up. Same thing with your subs, but I got it straight up. As you can see, straight up. So alright, so here we go. Here's the fun part. Shine a light over here so you can see. So now, as you see what it was hooked up, this will play my top speakers. This will play my bottom speaker, which is the sub. So before we get this right, there's one thing you really need to know, because you can mess up. So this I'm gonna show you why. I'm gonna show you why. Now, as you notice, right now, this end of this cable, like I said, I got XLRs. I don't really have 1/4 inch. I'd rather have 1/4 inch going in here to avoid accidentally hitting the fender power by accident and apply 48 volts, and you'll screw it up. So I make sure it's off. There's no fender power go through it. So anyway, this first channel right here, this first channel will be my mains. This is coming from the Driverack on the right channel. So this right here comes from the Driverack. If you follow it, it will come off the main. This second XLR, the second channel right here, this came from the Driverack on the sub channel. You follow it, you'll be right here. Now, before you do any audio testing, make sure there's no phantom power anyway. If you're using XLRs, like I said, I advise you use a 1/4 inch. But anyway, here are the gains. Make sure it's completely down, because you really don't need to use it at this point if you're using XLRs. It's best to use 1/4 inch. Make sure the compressor is turned off. Here's the EQ, high, mid, low, high, mid, so low, mid, whatever, and here's low. It's got a parametric EQ in it, so make sure they all straight. These are the auxiliary effects, so keep them off. And here's your left and right balance. This runs my top speaker. And the reason why I would say this, because if you look really close, if I can get it, I don't know if I can do it. I gotta turn it around. Hold on. Sorry for the blurriness. The reason why I'm trying to get the right light, it's just so hard. It's the shadow. But anyway, I know it sucks, but the reason why I would say this runs to my main, as long as you remember what this cable represents, that's coming from the Driverack. Like I said, this came from the main channel for my Driverack. It runs through the input of this mixer, and you also got to remember that you hook your top speakers into the main output as well. So in order to get sound off of that, you would have to go to your first channel that this came off of your main top from the Driverack. You would press this button down. This says main, and this says subs. So press this button down, leave these buttons untouched, unpressed. Push this down so you can get that main sound coming from the Driverack that's feeding to the input of this mixer. And then you got to be sure that you turn your main up, that your speakers is hooked up from the main output of this mixer to the input of that, as well as the cable over here follows, and you will get a sound. Same thing for your sub. Now here's my sub channel, and if you follow it, this came from the Driverack sub channel right here. So I choose sub, which I press the middle button that said sub. Leave these buttons untouched, and please be careful not to hit the main on the sub channel, because you're going to add extremely bass to your main and you can damage it. So make sure you really pay attention, because you can really do some damage here. This is more advanced. So make sure the sub channel is pressed. since this is a sub channel and the Driverack is feeding the sub signal from this cord into the second channel, and make sure that you can have these EQ turned down but leave the bass up so you can hear it. You can have these three turned down all the way off as well as that too. So here's my sub channel. It's selected to sub because that's where my power sub is hooked up to this. This feeds the signal to my power sub. But since the sub channel and the middle button is pressed and it says sub on the side, now you can get a sub output right here that feeds to the sub. So I'm gonna play some music and demonstrate how flexible it can be. So here we go. All right, hold on a second. Here we go. Let's just play this. Got my music ready. Everything's nice and level. Nothing overpowering, nothing. I keep everything in the middle, always for safe reasons. So here we go. That's playing. Driverack is playing. Now I can go over here and just turn these up, lead them together. I'm gonna turn my heights on first. So here we go. Can you hear it? That's my height. Here's my subs. I don't know if you can hear it. Actually, I'm gonna turn it up from there. See that's blinking? That's my sub channel. And the reason why you can hear that, see, it's flexible now. I can adjust it anywhere I want it. I can add a little bass, or I can take away a little bass if it's too much bass. I can do what I want. It's flexible. See what I mean? I can do what I want. And the reason why that's possible, let me turn this down. Stop that. Like I said, and the reason why it's possible is because, like I said, if you're going to be using your Driverack to make these two flexible, so you don't always have to hit the setup button and adjust the data wheel, so you can cut to turn the main up or down, or the sub channel main up or down with the mixer hooked up to it, is better that way. Not only that, you know, you got all your other inputs. And let's say if you want to hook a microphone to channel 3, you would select, let's say if you want microphone channel number 3, you would press the main button because your main is your top speaker. Your top speaker is feeding off this mixer main for your top speaker, so you can eliminate the rumble from the sub. So instead of hooking a standard microphone and you can hear your voice coming out of the sub, only this time if you hook your microphone to channel 3 and you press the main button, because the main feeds on the top speakers, you can eliminate the rumble too. So that's another reason why to have this as you're doing the DJ gig as well, because it's more flexible. But at the same time, you really got to be careful how you reroute your cables from your NN7s and speaker into this mixer, because it can get confusing. You can't get everything twisted up, so you really got to pay attention, and you must take it at your own risk. Okay, so just take it at your own risk. Really pay attention to what you're hooking up, because some people mess up on it. So anyway, and the reason why I can do it that way, like I said, channel 1 is my tops, and I press that button that says main right there. Channel 2 is for my sub, and I press the middle button for subs. And the reason why I had it hooked up that way, because you got to remember, this cable is coming from the Driverack. It only feeds the main signal, or a high pass if you set it up. It only feeds the main signal. Now the second channel, this is coming from the Driverack, from the sub channel on the Driverack. So as long as you can remember that and get the combination right, you wouldn't have no problem doing this. But I'm saying this, if you're doing this that way, you're really taking a risk, because you can actually get this flip-flop or reverse and actually send the wrong signal to the well, actually, you really ain't gonna hurt the sub. It's the top you're really gonna hurt it, because if you get these two backwards and you send a extremely low bass to the tops, you can really do some damage. So really pay attention to what you're doing, so that you don't really damage your speakers or the input circuitry on it. So you really got to be careful if you're taking this advantage. So if you want to do something like I just did, make sure you get a mixer that have at least one sub out. If you get a mixer and it doesn't have no sub outs, because normally the biggest mixer they got, they would have anywhere from 2 of these set to 8 of them. but you don't need that much. You can just get one like I got with just one set of sub out and just use that as your top speaker. That's your main. That's how I do it. So I haven't DJed with it yet, but one day I'm going to try that feature because actually it's a good idea. So I normally use this for my studio, but I'm going to actually take this out and DJ with it. So like I said, I think it's a good idea to use a mixer between your Driverack mixer and then go out to your speakers. So, but like I said, at the same time, when you're dealing with something like this, you really got to play attention because you can really do some damage if you don't pay attention. So do it real slow. Write it down if you had to. Take notes and write it down so that way you know you're hooking it up right. Like I said, you know, just be careful when you're doing this. And I think it's flexible because you can adjust. You want more heights, less height. You want more bass, less bass. And you can hook them left and right. You know, subwoofer left, subwoofer right, main speaker left, main speaker right. And you can adjust them independently. When it comes to sub situation, you can get a piece of tape and stick it on top of these two so that way when you push them, they always level. So they not, you know, you don't want the bass. You don't want your left sub be harder, hits harder than the right sub if you're dealing with two subs. So one sub is no problem. You can just use one fader. But I got two subs, so I can just keep them the same like this. Every time I want more bass or less bass. But you can put a piece of tape over it. So if you're just pushing it, you know, you won't mess up the phrase between these two subs. So I'm just saying. But other than that, same thing with the tops. You know, put a little piece of tape over it so that both tops will be even. That way it's flexible. That way you can get a little bit more bass or take away bass. So this is a good feature I should say. So there you go. Now that you know that you can use a mixer between your Driverack and your speakers, now you know that your volumes on it could be more flexible. And like I said, you can plug a microphone to it, but make sure you hit the main or whatever channel you hooked up to that would route into the main speakers only, not to the subs, to prevent rumble. So that can save you some time too. So my good tip for you is, if you get a mixer like that, like I said, this Driverack only takes XLRs. If you're going to be dealing with PA mixer like I just showed you, I advise you to get an XLR that will plug into this, and then the other end of the cable, have it, let me turn this off, have it look like this. So that way you can take this and hook up, say, a stereo channel. Subwoofer left, subwoofer right, main left, main right, and like I showed you the little button thingy, and from there it would avoid you for accidentally hook up to these, because they only designed to hook up microphones. And that's why I said this is dangerous doing it that way, because you can really mess up your system because it's got a phantom power feature in there. Lucky it was off. I always make sure it's off before I plug any different system in there. So I advise you to use these. Like I said, XLR from this end, grab the other end of the cable, make sure it looks like this, and balance, have it balanced. That's my suggestion to you. So anyway, you know what to do. Leave me comments below. Let me know what you think it is. If it works for you, let me know. If you feel uncomfortable, give me a shout out and I'll go with you step by step. Talk to you later.